Welcome to the 5th episode of Photovlogs. Today we're visiting two cities in Scotland, Glasgow and Edinburgh. So since I was studying in Lancaster, which is in northern England, I thought it would be a great opportunity to check out Scotland for the weekend. And this is actually my first solo trip. If you've seen my previous photo vlogs, I've mainly been traveling with friends. And so this is my first solo trip. I was quite nervous, but also excited. I took an evening train from Lancaster to Glasgow. And in typical UK fashion, I was greeted with pouring rain. But I quickly made it to my hostel and I settled in for the night. The next day, I woke up bright and early. And after a questionable toothbrushing session, I headed out. But first, breakfast, and what better way to start off the day than with a full Scottish breakfast. It was delicious, though I don't know how I feel about black pudding, but everything else, amazing. So my first stop was the Glasgow Cathedral, and as I made my way there, what struck me the most was seeing all of these intricate murals on all of the buildings, as well as the worn bricks. I finally made my way there, and I spent some time wandering inside, looking at all of this Gothic architecture details. I've never seen it in person, so it was pretty surreal to see all of the little details. This building was built in 1197, which is kind of crazy to think about. It's one of the oldest buildings in Glasgow, and I think in all of Scotland too. So pretty crazy to see. The lighting outside was not great. It was gloomy, it was cloudy, but I just tried to make the best of all of the late autumn foliage. Next, I visited the Glasgow Necropolis, which is a Victorian cemetery right beside the Glasgow Cathedral. Now, when I was looking at places to visit in Glasgow, I was not expecting a cemetery to come up, but after seeing it, I understand. Now, walking up the hill, I was in awe. I mean, the hill overlooked the city of Glasgow, and so the view was beautiful. And also, I was alone, which felt a little bit eerie, but at the same time, it also felt kind of breathtaking. I had struggled a little bit with composition here. I think it was just because there wasn't really that many people or animals, really. But yeah, I wish I had spent a little bit more time here. Afterwards, I made my way to George Square. I like to visit some of the main squares in different cities that I visit just to get a sense of the city. Main squares are always nice to people watch, to relax, and of course, to take some pigeon photos. When you're in Glasgow, you need to visit the Duke of Wellington statue. It's a big icon there, and the story goes is that drunken students would put a traffic cone on top of this Duke's head. And keep in mind, this is a 21-foot statue, so don't know how they managed that, but even when daytime workers would try and remove it, the cone always found its way back. So now it's a symbol and icon of Glasgow's humor. I took a quick stroll through the Museum of Modern Art and had some really interesting pieces. After that, I took a bus straight to the Kelvin Grove Art Gallery. It's crazy to me how all of these museums are free because there was some really incredible art. I spent a couple of hours here just trying to absorb as much as I could. I also really loved the photography exhibit here. I found it really inspiring. And of course, I had to watch the organ show. At this point, I was really hungry, and so I went across the street to get some good old fish and chips. And after I had my meal, I went over to the University of Glasgow to, enjoy some of their architecture, and it was beautiful. Yeah, quickly after that, I strolled across the Ashton Lane, which is right beside the university, and it's just a little back street full of local shops and restaurants and a cinema. By early evening, the light was fading and I was tired, so we're off to bed. Good morning. Today we're headed off to Edinburgh, but before that, I wanted to explore a little bit of Glasgow. I was off to the People's Palace, and the People's Palace is a nice little museum and glass house located in Glasgow, so I wanted to check that out. But unfortunately, when I got there, it turns out a lot of it was closed for renovations, and I was a little disappointed. But alas, we make the most of it. I mean, I walked around the area, tried to take some photos while I was there. The train from Glasgow to Edinburgh took just an hour, but stepping off, it felt like an entirely different world. The mix of Georgian, Victorian, Edwardian architecture felt foreign and so fascinating to me. Finding my hostel was a struggle. There were so many winding roads. I was going in different directions. It was raining. I was lugging all of my bags and pretty rough, but I made it. I explored the area around Edinburgh Castle, which sits on a huge hill. I had tickets for the next day, so for now, I just took in the views. For a brief moment, the sun broke through the clouds, and it was beautiful. So next, I visited the Scottish National Gallery, and to my surprise, they had an Impressionism exhibit, and this was completely unplanned, but it worked out perfectly because I love Impressionism. It was amazing seeing so many works by different artists like Monet, Van Gogh, Degas, Matisse, and many more. It all felt so surreal. After spending hours in the gallery, I just walked around the area, and it was right beside the Prince Street Gardens, so it was beautiful. The rain had finally stopped, and golden hour was settling in. The mix of sunlight and the clouds created a dramatic, moody atmosphere. Watching the light hit the streets, trees, and people was breathtaking. As I was following the light, I noticed the entrance to Calton Hill, which is a scenic spot with panoramic city views. I had planned to visit another day, but it being golden hour, I just could not resist, and light was running, so I hurried up the stairs to try and make the most of it. Standing at the top, the sun finally out after a long day of rain, and was having a little bit of a rough day. It felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. It was stunning. I had this burst of energy to try and capture as much as I could before the sun set. Afterwards, I grabbed some dinner and wrapped it up for the night. Good morning. It is now my last day in Edinburgh. Another cloudy day, kind of a bummer, but still, I tried to make the most of it. I started my morning with a walk through the Prince Street Gardens, a quiet, rainy public park in the heart of the city. I enjoyed the last of the autumn foliage, just wandering through the city and trying to take it all in. Up at the National Museum of Scotland, and again, it was free. There were a lot of fascinating exhibits, from the Natural World Gallery to the cultural exhibits, and of course, Dolly the sheep, who is apparently the most famous sheep in the world. It was the world's first mammal who is cloned from an adult somatic cell. Afterwards, I strolled through the Royal Mile and the Grassmarket area. Everything was so scenic and so beautiful. Finally, it was time to visit the Edinburgh Castle. Seeing that all of the historic rooms was pretty cool, but unfortunately I didn't find very many compositions, but still, it was really cool to witness it in person. And to wrap up the trip, I treated myself to one of Scotland's most iconic dishes, the Cullen skink. It's a hearty, creamy fish soup. It was delicious. But you know what wasn't delicious? Finding a bug in my food. And I still had to pay full price. So that was unfortunate. And that wraps it up for Scotland. Honestly, I had a pretty rough time here traveling alone. It was pretty nerve-wracking, and also just a lot of things didn't go so smoothly, and it was raining the entire time. But you know what? That happens. And honestly, I'm really grateful that I got to see so much art and so many different landscapes and buildings. And it's such a privilege to be able to travel on your own. So I'm really grateful. Hopefully I can come back here and experience the city in its fullest. Thanks for joining me on this photo vlog, and in the next one, I'll see you in Spain.